The air inside Sterling and Croft Legal felt colder than the San Francisco Bay fog clinging to the panoramic windows, thick with the scent of old money and the bitter tang of impending disappointment. Judgment Day, delivered via my parents' last will. My brother, Julian Vance, the golden heir, practically vibrated with entitlement, pacing the plush carpet like he already owned the multi-million-dollar view. Me? I just sat small in the Italian leather chair, bracing for the final, formal confirmation of my place. The afterthought. Mr. Croft adjusted his spectacles, his voice cutting through the heavy silence. "To our son, Julian," he began, "for his unwavering commitment to the family legacy." He droned on, listing assets that spun in my head, controlling interest in Vance Dynamics, the sprawling Redwood Palisades estate, our summer retreat on Nantucket Sound, a stock portfolio easily worth 8 figures. Julian's smug smile widened with every word, a predator savoring his prize. Then, the pause I dreaded. "And to our daughter, Eleanor Vance." Mr. Croft shuffled papers, clearing his throat. "We leave the painting, Celestial Shoreline, by Elias Thorne, currently hanging in the main library." Silence crashed down. A painting? Just a painting? Julian didn't even try to hide his satisfied smirk. "It was your mother's favorite," Mr. Croft offered weakly, the disparity hanging thick and awkward between us. My inheritance, a canvas and some paint, while Julian walked away with an empire. Ignoring Julian's calls, I drove the few miles across San Francisco to the Redwood Palisades estate. Now his estate, feeling numb. The imposing gates swung open after I mumbled my reason for being there. Collecting my inheritance. Inside, the familiar scent of beeswax and old secrets hung heavy. Mrs. Davies, our longtime housekeeper, met me in the grand library, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Oh, Miss Eleanor," she whispered, pulling me into a tight, unexpected hug. "It just isn't right, what they've done." I hugged her back, swallowing the lump in my throat. She helped me carefully lift Celestial Shoreline from its place above the fireplace, wrapping Elias Thorne's moody seascape in a thick, moving blanket. "Your mother," Mrs. Davies said softly, her voice thick with emotion. She used to stare at this for hours, especially near the end, muttering about shapes and sequences. "We thought," she hesitated, "we thought it was the illness affecting her mind." Back in my cramped apartment, I unwrapped the painting. The depiction of the rugged coast under a swirling, starry sky was technically brilliant, but those shapes, stylized constellations, oddly geometric rock formations, they didn't quite belong. They felt intentional, almost jarring against the natural beauty. Shapes and sequences. Mrs. Davis's words echoed. My art history studies flashed in my mind. Steganography, hiding messages in plain sight. Could this painting, this final, dismissive gift, actually be trying to tell me something? A flicker of suspicion ignited within the cold ache of disappointment. My phone buzzed incessantly. Julian again. I ignored it, staring intently at Celestial Shoreline under the harsh glare of my apartment lights. The geometric shapes seemed to subtly shimmer, mocking me. Then, a sharp, insistent knock hammered at my door, making me jump. It was past midnight. Peeking through the peephole, my blood ran cold. Julian stood there, his usually immaculate Savile Row suit rumpled, hair askew, a wildness in his eyes I'd never seen. "Eleanor," he called, his voice tight. "Open up. We need to talk about the painting." Silence. Why the sudden, frantic interest in a piece of art he'd dismissed hours ago? "Eleanor, please." His voice cracked with an unfamiliar desperation. "Mom left instructions about the painting. You need to give it back." Instructions? My heart leaped. Maybe I wasn't crazy. "Go away, Julian," I yelled through the door, my voice trembling slightly. "It's mine. It's all I got, remember?" He slammed his fist against the wood. "You don't understand," he hissed, his voice low and urgent. "That painting, it's not what you think. Give it to me now, Eleanor, and I'll wire you $5 million. $5 million for this painting. The one he laughed at. My mind raced. Julian was greedy and arrogant, but never stupid with money. If he was offering that much, its true value must be astronomical. Suddenly I heard scraping. Keys! Did he still have a spare? I snatched the painting off the wall, ran to my bedroom, and slammed the lock just as my front door burst open. "Eleanor, where are you?" Julian's furious voice echoed through my small apartment. Clutching celestial shoreline, my hands shaking, I scanned the back. The canvas mounting felt slightly off. Prying gently at a loose edge near the frame, a folded piece of paper, brittle with age, fluttered out. My mother's elegant script covered it. "My dearest Eleanor," it began. "If you are reading this, you have seen the patterns I knew you would." My breath caught. The letter laid bare a devastating truth. My mother, Isabel Vance, was the brilliant mind behind Vance Dynamics' core innovations. My father, Arthur, and Julian had systematically stolen her work, building their empire on her genius while silencing her. "The painting holds the keys," she wrote. "The coordinates etched within the shoreline lead to my private laboratory in the Sierra foothills. The shapes contain the access codes." Hearing Julian finally retreat and my front door slam, I knew I had no time. I grabbed my laptop, the carefully wrapped painting, the letter, and a small bag. The drive east felt frantic, every shadow seeming like Julian's pursuit. 3 hours later, following the coordinates, I found an overgrown property, seemingly abandoned. But the landscape, the clusters of rocks, the specific curve of the ridge, they matched the painting's coded geography perfectly. Just as the letter described, an old, rusted storm cellar door was hidden beneath some brush. Punching the first sequence of numbers gleaned from the painting's hidden patterns into a concealed keypad, the heavy steel door hissed open, revealing a dark staircase descending into the earth. Motion-activated lights flickered on as I descended, the air growing cool and smelling faintly of ozone and machinery. The staircase opened into a space that stole my breath. Not a dusty cellar, but a state-of-the-art laboratory. Pristine white walls gleamed under recessed lighting. Rows of humming servers lined one area, and advanced equipment I only vaguely recognized filled polished steel benches. But my eyes were drawn to the far wall. It was covered, floor to ceiling, with framed documents, original patent filings, intricate technical drawings, prototype photos, and on every single one, in elegant, familiar script, Isabel Vance. Innovations Vance Dynamics had hailed as my father's breakthroughs, technologies that formed the company's bedrock. They were all hers. My mother hadn't just been sidelined. She was the company. "Impressive, isn't it?" The voice, chillingly familiar, echoed behind me. I spun around. My father, Arthur Vance, stood in the doorway, looking exactly as he had the day we buried him nearly a year ago. Beside him, Julian wore a triumphant sneer. "Did you really think your mother was the only one who knew about this place?" Arthur stepped further in, his eyes cold. "Faking my death bought me the time I needed to search, unobserved. Your mother changed all the security protocols before she passed, Julian added, blocking the stairwell. We just needed you to unlock the door for us, Eleanor. The will reading, the painting, all a calculated risk. Arthur's gaze swept the lab. And now, he said, advancing slowly, you're going to help us erase it all. Every trace of your mother's real work must disappear. My father and brother wanted me to destroy my mother's legacy, the proof of their monstrous betrayal. But, as Arthur advanced, his eyes hard and calculating, my gaze flickered past him to the main workstation against the far wall. My mother's letter. It hadn't just contained coordinates and access keys, it detailed fail-safes. An emergency sequence, she'd written, should the unthinkable happen. While they gloated, confident in their trap, I had been subtly backing towards that console. They'd made a fatal error, underestimating me one last time. Actually, I said, my voice surprisingly steady as my fingers flew across the hidden interface beneath the console, inputting the second sequence derived from the celestial shoreline's coded patterns. I don't think I will. The lab's ambient lighting abruptly shifted, bathing everything in a pulsating red emergency glow. A calm, computerized female voice announced, Aegis protocol activated. Data packet transmission initiated to secure servers, major news outlets, Securities and Exchange Commission, international patent offices. Deletion override engaged. Lockdown commencing. Arthur's face contorted with disbelief, then fury. What have you done? He roared. Heavy steel shutters slammed down over the entrance stairwell and the few small ventilation grates, sealing us in with a resounding clang. Alarms began blaring, a deafening klaxon echoing off the sterile surfaces. Mom called it her insurance policy, I stated, feeling a surge of adrenaline and cold resolve. Every piece of evidence proving your fraud, your theft, it's all gone public, irretrievably. Julian lunged, but it was useless. Through the reinforced observation window near the ceiling, flashing red and blue lights cut through the pre-dawn gloom. Sirens wailed, growing rapidly louder. They were trapped, exposed, their empire built on lies about to implode. The hours following the flashing lights and the arrival of bewildered Sierra County deputies were a surreal blur. Arthur and Julian, stripped of their arrogance and trapped by my mother's meticulous planning, were led away in handcuffs, their faces masks of stunned rage and disbelief. The charges ranged from corporate espionage and intellectual property theft to obstruction of justice, and in my father's case, fraud related to faking his own death. I watched it unfold from the periphery, providing my statement, the weight of the celestial shoreline painting still seeming to press against my side, even though it was now secured as evidence. The fallout was instantaneous and brutal. News outlets, armed with the irrefutable data packets transmitted by the Aegis protocol, exploded with the story. Vance Dynamics CEO Arthur Vance found alive, arrested with son for massive fraud, screamed the headlines across Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg. Tech giant built on stolen innovations. The secret genius of Isabel Vance revealed. Vance Dynamics stock didn't just dip, it cratered, losing billions in market value within hours as investors panicked and partners scrambled to distance themselves. The carefully constructed facade of my father as a visionary innovator shattered spectacularly, replaced by the image of a thief who had betrayed and exploited his own brilliant wife. Suddenly my phone, previously silent except for Julian's frantic calls, wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, lawyers, former employees of my mother's era, all clamoring for a piece of the story, for insight into the woman who now held the key to the empire's implosion. Me. The forgotten daughter was now the epicenter of the earthquake, shaking the tech world. While the media frenzy continued, and Arthur and Julian navigated the cold realities of the legal system from behind bars, Mrs. Davies contacted me again, her voice filled with quiet purpose. "Your mother entrusted me with more, Miss Eleanor," she explained, "to be delivered only after the truth about the company was revealed." Meeting her later that day, she handed me a heavy portfolio containing not just more letters, but meticulously organized legal documents. As I read Isabel Vance's words, the full scope of her brilliance and her long game truly sank in. This wasn't just about exposing theft, it was about succession. She hadn't simply documented the past, she had secured the future. The portfolio contained proof of an independent trust, established years ago under a discrete legal structure, funded by modest early investments my mother had made separately. And held within that trust? Dozens of crucial, active patents filed under her name, covering not only the foundational technologies Arthur had stolen, but also next-generation innovations she'd continued developing in secret within her Sierra Foothills lab. These weren't just historical artifacts. They were the very technologies Vance Dynamics relied upon for its current and future operations. A sharp legal consultant, dispatched almost immediately by an interested party at the Securities and Exchange Commission following the Aegis Protocol data dump, confirmed it. These patents were ironclad, and the trust named me, Eleanor Vance, as the sole beneficiary and controller. My true inheritance wasn't just the exposure of lies, it was the legal and technological control of the very company that had cast me aside. The power had shifted completely. Armed with irrefutable legal standing and the moral high ground, I walked into the gleaming San Francisco headquarters of Vance Dynamics, not as the overlooked daughter, but as its de facto controller. The shell-shocked board of directors, desperate to salvage anything from the wreckage, had little choice but to accept the new reality. My first act was symbolic, yet profound. Vance Dynamics, a name now synonymous with deceit, was dissolved. In its place rose Etheria Solutions, a name chosen to evoke clarity, light, and limitless potential, everything my mother embodied, and everything the old guard had suppressed. The transition was swift and decisive. I initiated a complete overhaul of the corporate structure, prioritizing transparency and ethical conduct. We established the Isabel Vance Legacy Fund, not just as a means of financial restitution for inventors wronged by my father and brother, but as an active incubator, providing resources and mentorship to brilliant minds who, like my mother, might otherwise be exploited or overlooked. The focus shifted from ruthless profit maximization to sustainable, ethical innovation. We began actively seeking out and partnering with inventors, ensuring fair compensation and recognition. The culture began to change, slowly shedding the toxic ambition of the past and embracing a collaborative spirit. And in my new office, Arthur Vance's former domain, the painting, Celestial Shoreline, now hung in the most prominent position, a constant reminder of the hidden truths, the fight for justice, and the enduring power of my mother's true vision. It was no longer just a painting, it was the cornerstone of a new legacy. Looking back, it's almost impossible to believe that everything hinged on a single painting, Celestial Shoreline, dismissed as worthless. But its value wasn't monetary. It was the key that unlocked a hidden history and ignited a revolution built on truth. My mother, Isabel Vance, didn't just leave me coordinates and codes. She left a blueprint for reclaiming justice and building something better. Her story, our story, echoes powerful lessons that resonate far beyond the gleaming towers of ethereal solutions. It teaches us that truth, however deeply buried, possesses an irrepressible power. It reminds us never to underestimate those the world deems insignificant, for true strength often lies unseen. It underscores the critical importance of paying attention to the details, the patterns hidden in plain sight. Perhaps most crucially, it proves that empires built on lies and theft are ultimately fragile, destined to crumble, while integrity forms the only bedrock strong enough to withstand the test of time. My mother's patient, strategic planning achieved what brute force never could. Her legacy isn't just the technology, but the courage and conviction she embodied. In your own lives, in your workplaces, seek that truth. Value every contribution, especially the quiet ones. Build your success ethically. Never stop believing in your own potential, your own hidden patterns. What lessons from Eleanor's journey resonated most with you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss the power of truth and hidden potential. And don't forget to follow for more stories that challenge, inspire, and reveal the strength within.